Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to talk about something huge, entrepreneurship. But for a second, I want you to forget the stuffy textbook definition. We're going to look at it as this incredible creative force, the engine that really builds new possibilities right from scratch.
So let's just start with a really big question. Have you ever wondered where all this stuff comes from? New jobs, clever fixes for our problems, brand new opportunities. Where does it all begin? Well, the answer, as we're about to see, is completely rooted in that entrepreneurial spirit. Okay, so before we get into what makes an entrepreneur tick, let's first get a handle on their impact. Why does this whole concept matter so much? Because its effects are like ripples in a pond, touching everything from a single person to their community and eventually the entire nation.
On a personal level, the pull is just so powerful. And it's way more than just being your own boss. It's the real freedom to set your own direction, to be constantly learning and picking up new skills, and to literally build a life that actually matches your own values and goals. It's a path of some pretty intense personal growth.
Now, let's zoom out just a bit to the community. Entrepreneurs, they often see the local needs that bigger companies might just completely overlook. They build businesses that don't just offer a service, but they also create social good and reinforce the values of that community. They're basically problem solvers for their own neighborhoods. And when you look at the national scale, the impact gets even bigger and clearer. Entrepreneurs create wealth through capital formation. They can kickstart development in areas that really need it. And altogether, they help a nation become more self-reliant, which boosts prosperity for everyone. The bottom line here is that a country with a buzzing entrepreneurial culture is usually a thriving nation.
So when you see an impact that massive, you just have to ask, what kind of person is driving all this incredible change? What's really at the core of an entrepreneur's identity? Let's break it down.
It really all comes down to a specific way of thinking. It's having the guts to take on risks, the clarity to see a vision for the future, and the leadership to get other people excited about it too. But really, above all, it's about innovation, finding new and better ways of doing things, and then turning all of that energy into a real, tangible economic activity.
And look, this isn't just a bunch of nice ideas. Our source material here actually confirms these exact characteristics. Risk-bearing, vision, leadership, innovation, these are the absolute bedrock features of entrepreneurship.
Now, what's super interesting is that entrepreneurship is not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. It could be a small local shop, a social project focused on making a difference, a new idea in farming, a green business for sustainability, or, of course, amazing initiatives led by women. The same core principles are at play across all these different fields.
Okay, so we've got a good picture of who an entrepreneur is, but how do they actually turn that vision into a living, breathing business? Let's walk through the key things they actually do.
Our source material boils it all down to 4 essential steps. First, you have to plan. That's the blueprint for everything. Then you organize. You pull together all the resources you need, from money to people. After that, you direct, leading the team and running the day-to-day show. And finally, you control, basically steering the ship and making tweaks to stay on course and hit your goals.
Let's be real. This is a tough journey. It is filled with risks and unknowns. So what's the fuel? What really motivates someone to take on this massive challenge of building something out of nothing?
The motivation really comes from 2 different places. On one hand, you've got these powerful internal drivers, like a deep personal desire to create something, a need to achieve, a real passion for the idea. Then, on the other hand, you have external factors that kind of open the door to opportunity. Stuff like government support, having the right resources available, and of course, a clear demand in the market for whatever you're building. The most successful ventures, they usually hit that sweet spot where that internal fire meets a real external opportunity. So let's bring all this theory down to earth with a specific example. How has this engine of change actually evolved in a country like Nepal? Well, our source material gives us a pretty fascinating look back at the history.
You can really see the journey happening in 3 big stages. First, way back in the pre-unification era, the efforts were kind of scattered and all over the place. Then, after unification, things got a bit more centralized, but growth was still pretty slow. The real game changer was the modern era, this planned development stage, where we start to see a structured, nationwide effort to actively push entrepreneurship as a key to progress.
So if there's one big idea to take away from all this, it's this. Entrepreneurship isn't just about spreadsheets and business plans. At its very heart, it's a mindset. It's a way of looking at the world that's proactive, creative, and resilient. It's all about finding and solving problems, big or small.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. I want you to look at the world around you, your community, your work, your day-to-day life. What's a problem you see that's just waiting for someone with a vision, some passion, and just a little bit of courage to come along and solve it?